'cause I hear tell about a heaven in Alberta where they've got all hell for basements. Yeah, I've lost my way, but I hear tell about a heaven in Alberta where they've got all hell for basements.
Hi, everyone. Frankie here. New West Reset. Hello. Thanks for shooting in, joining me here for another New West Reset Live. How's it going? How you doing there, bud? Where are we at here? Well, it's Friday, you see. Friday, September the 8th. So welcome. 7 p.m. local time, mountain time here in Calgary, Alberta. Not a bad day today. It was a little cloudy and kind of chilly earlier in the day, but it's not too bad out there now, bud. Blue skies and, it's all good. How you doing? How's it going? So as mentioned, New West Reset Live. What are we at here? Episode 30, the big 3-0 here tonight. So thanks for joining me. Happy Friday to you. Thanks for taking time out of your weekend or the kickoff to your weekend. Joining me. There's a whole bunch of people live streaming right now. So, hey, if you're here, wow, thank you. Appreciate it. 6 of you watching right now. So if you're lurking, jump into the box, sound off, say howdy. Let me know where you at, where you coming from, what's going on. Vincent's here. Good to see you. Terry's here as well. Howdy, Terry. Old World Michigan in the house. Title's here. It's Frankie Friday. Frankie Fingers Friday. Frankie Fingers over here. Anyway. Good to see all of you. Thank you very much. I'm supposed to be streaming live on Rumble right now, but I don't think it's working. I don't know what's going on. I think a guy may have set it up wrong or something. I don't know. So sorry, Rumble. I don't know what's happening. We'll have a look at it at a later time. But anyways, that said, links in the description for Rumble, BitChute, MeWe, emails if you want to send a guy an email, say, hey, Frankie, go check this place out. Or, hey, Frankie, what do you think about this, that, or the other? Have a little sip of my water. Oh, Rumble's crapped out all week. Oh, okay, there you go. I'm under the, I think what a guy's supposed to do is set up the stream, like a new stream each time and link it to Rumble. Whereas, see, because I'm getting a notification through StreamYard right now. It says we're having trouble streaming to your destination. It's possible the stream would end it or delete it on the destination. Okay. So yeah, see, it doesn't like it. Let me try something here on the fly as we're going. Because this is goofy. Let's see what's happening here. It's Let's try this and see if I can set up a new one here. This might work. In the meantime, I hope you're doing well. You're having a great start to your weekend. All that there stuff, the weather's going okay for you. Uh, Weather here has not been too bad. Like I said, we've had some rain here or there. And it's helped with the smoke a little bit. But other than that, kind of business as usual. But there's crazy stuff going on. Like tonight, we're talking about the Great Halifax Reset. And Halifax, in case you don't know, is over in the Maritimes in Eastern Canada, in Nova Scotia, New Scotland. And right now, they're having some big problems over there with wildfires and what's nots, or floods, sorry. Northwest Territories is having wildfires, and Winnipeg is having, Halifax is having floods. So I'm trying to do two things at the same time. I'm getting very distracted here. So I think this should be working. All right, now we're working live on Rumble. So sorry about that. Not sure what was happening, but we should be good to go now. Liz is in the house. Hi, all. Hi, Frankie. Howdy, Liz. Welcome. So, 8 of you watching. If you haven't already, maybe you could consider giving a guy the thumbs up, help a fella out a little bit. Just helps to push me out into the YouTube algorithm. And if you're on the fence of subscribing or not, then hey, why not? Give it a shot. What's the worst that can happen? Right? And, consider subscribing as we move towards 1,300 over here on the channel. So I thought what we do here is I'll start by just showing everybody where we're talking about here, where exactly everything that we're going to be covering tonight happened. It did. It's in Nova Scotia, obviously, as mentioned, and that's in Eastern Canada. I'll just give you a peekaboo here at exactly what I'm talking about. Get out of there. So here's Nova Scotia right here. These are, the Maritimes, Newfoundland, Labrador, and Quebec and Ontario. So we're going to be concentrating here and specifically in Halifax, which is right here. I've talked about Halifax a little bit on the channel before, and also Old World Exploration has talked about it on his channel. And we've covered this portion of Canada on our joint show, the Knucklehead Show. It's a very, very interesting part of the country. And right now, unfortunately, there's crazy stuff going on all over the place over there. Just going to give you a brief rundown on Halifax itself here. Halifax, Nova Scotia, New Scotland, apparently is what Nova Scotia means. Halifax is the capital and largest municipality, Canadian province of Nova Scotia, and the largest municipality in Atlantic Canada. And it's one of the fastest growing cities. Why do they keep saying municipalities? It's a city. Just quit being fancy on a guy now. It's got 350,000 people approximately. Actually, no, sorry, about almost 500,000, and 350 is what I'm trying to say. 350,000 in sort of in the downtown. major economic center in Atlantic Canada. It's a big port city and all that sort of stuff. So history here is it's located in the Mi'kmaq land, the Mi'kmaq. It's Indigenous First Nations here in Canada. The traditional ancestral lands of the Mi'kmaq peoples. There you go. They've resided in Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island since prior to the European landings in North America in the 1500s. This time of Confederation, about 1,000 Mi'kmaq lived in the colony of Nova Scotia. So one of the largest Indigenous nations in the area, especially in and around Halifax and Nova Scotia itself, but in terms of in Eastern Canada. Hey, old world hamster wheel, how you doing? Old world hamster wheel cranes. Sorry, my mistake. How's she going there, eh, bot? So the first permanent European settlement in the region was on the Halifax Peninsula, the establishment of the town of Halifax, named after the second Earl of Halifax. In 1749, led to the colonial capital being transferred from Annapolis Royal. What's that? Formerly known as Port Royal. Oh, there you go. Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, nice star fort shape around that place, by the way. Very interesting. I have to put that in the fellow's memory bank. Beep, boop, pop, boop, beep. For later. Look into that a little bit. That looked interesting. I missed that on my Star Forts in Canada live stream I did a while back. Annapolis Royal. Interesting. Okay, so there was it was significant in a bunch of wars because the naval vessels for the British Navy, yada yada, they could sail out of there real quick, so on and so forth. There's a natural harbor in there and all of that jazz. So that's sort of where we're talking about. Hey, Bernie, crypto alchemist. Hey. Good to see you, my fellow Calgarian Targaryen. That's a Targaryen. Good to see you. Welcome, sir. So what we're going to be specifically covering for this here thing is the Halifax Explosion. And it was kind of a big deal. Now, for me personally, I do not doubt that there was an explosion. What I doubt, yes, thank you, Bernie. Yes, smash the like button. Beat the hell out of that thing. Anyway, I don't doubt that there was some kind of explosion there, but what they're saying was the cause of the explosion. And we'll get into that toot sweet. But to me, that's what's malarkey, is what they're saying caused the explosion. So let me share what I've got with you here. Again, this is just according to the main story here. So I'm just going by the Wikipedia, which pretty much any other, short of getting off my duff and going to the library, anything that's online in terms of articles regarding the Halifax explosion. It's gonna basically be verbatim the Wikipedia page, anyways. So the Halifax explosion. Get out of there! I don't want to donate nothing to you. Get here, close. Go on now. Get. So on the morning of December the 6th, 1917, very close to that dreaded December the 7th date. But anyway, the French cargo ship SS Mont Blanc collided with the Norwegian vessel SS Imo in the harbor of Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. The Mont Blanc, laden with high explosives, caught fire and exploded, devastating the Richmond district of Halifax. At least 1,782 people were killed, largely in Halifax and Dartmouth, which is across the strait, or across the harbor. The harbor. Were killed by the blast, debris, fires, or collapsing buildings. And an estimated 9,000 others were injured. The blast was the largest human-made explosion at the time. It released the equivalent energy of roughly 2.9 kilotons of TNT. 3 kilotons of the good old Yosemite Sam TNT. Good old Wile E. Coyote got it at the Acme TNT company, TNT. So the Mont Blanc was under orders from the French government to carry her cargo from New York via Halifax to Bordeaux, France. At roughly 8:45 in the morning, she collided at low speed, approximately 1 knot or 1.2 miles per hour, with the unladen Emo, chartered by the Commission for Relief in Belgium to pick up a cargo of relief supplies in New York. On the Mont Blanc, the impact damaged benzoyl barrels stored on deck. Leaking vapors, which were ignited by sparks from the collision, set off a fire on board that quickly grew out of control. Approximately 20 minutes later, at 9:04 and 35 seconds, wow, they got that down to the 35 seconds. Anyway, the Mont Blanc exploded. And there just so happened to be somebody there to catch it. Ain't that convenient? Nearly all structures within an 800-meter or half-mile radius, including the community of Richmond, were obliterated. A pressure wave snapped trees, bent iron rails, demolished buildings, grounded vessels, including Emo, which was washed ashore by ensuing tsunami, and scattered fragments of Mont Blanc for kilometers or miles. Across the harbor in Dartmouth, there was also widespread damage. A tsunami created by the blast wiped out the community of the Mi'kmaq First Nations, who lived in the Tufts Cove area for generations. Totally wiped out a village. Relief efforts began almost immediately, and hospitals quickly became full. Rescue trains began arriving the day of the explosion from across Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, while other trains from central Canada and the northeastern United States were impeded by blizzards. Construction of temporary shelters to house the many people left homeless began soon after the disaster. The initial judicial inquiry found Mont Blanc to have been responsible for the disaster, but a later appeal determined that both vessels were to blame. The north end of Halifax has several memorials to victims of the explosion. So 2 ships smashed into each other. So one was the Norwegian ship that was going to be sailing across to Belgium with relief supplies for those affected in World War I in Belgium. And the other ship was a French ship loaded to the nuts, loaded to the gills with TNT and all kinds of stuff, actually, which we'll soon look into here. And because of sparks, Team Heat. How's she going there? Hey, bud? How are you there, guy? And because of sparks of 2 metal ships rubbing against each other when they collided, it ignited this vapor that spilled out onto the deck. I guess apparently by the main story, by the official story, it was so loaded in the cargo holds with TNT and gun cotton, like a type of gunpowder, black powder, basically, I believe, and a couple of other highly explosive materials that, well, oh, gun cotton, there it is, right there, gun cotton, benzol, picric acid. But apparently the cargo holds were so loaded that they had to put the benzol on deck. They couldn't store it below. So when the ships collided, these containers of benzol on deck fell over and spilled, I guess, because I don't know, I guess they weren't secured properly by the deckhands who were supposed to be doing this, for the war effort. So way to go there, sailor, I guess. I don't know. Because ultimately that's what they're going to try to do, is pin it down onto, one guy. They tried to get one ship's captain on this thing, but both of them were knuckleheads. It gets into it right here. The Norwegian ship SS Emo had sailed from the Netherlands en route to New York to take on relief supplies for Belgium under the command of Hakem From. I'm sure I butchered that, but there it is. The ship arrived in Halifax on the 3rd of December for neutral inspection. Spent 2 days in Bedford Basin awaiting refueling supplies. Though she had been given clearance to leave the port on the 5th of December, Emo's departure was delayed because her coal load did not arrive until late that afternoon. The loading of the fuel was not completed until after the anti-submarine nets had been raised for the night. Therefore, the vessel could not depart until the next morning. That's right. Across the opening into the channel that goes into the bay, I guess, or into the harbor, they put up these anti-submarine nets that they would lower, I think at 6 a.m., and they would raise them up at midnight. So if you were outside the harbor, you had to stay out, and if you were in, you had to stay in, and sucks to be you. So the Mont Blanc, meanwhile, arrived from New York late on December the 5th under the command of Émile Medec. The vessel was fully loaded with explosives, with the explosive TNT and picric acid, the highly flammable fuel benzol, and gun cotton. She intended to join a slow convoy gathering in Bedford Basin, readying to depart for Europe, but was too late to enter the harbor before the nets were raised, which means she got there after midnight. Ships carrying dangerous cargo were not allowed into the harbor before the war, but risks posed by German submarines had resulted in a relaxation of regulations. Navigating into or out of Bedford Basin required passage through a strait called the Narrows. Ships were expected to keep close to the side of the channel situated on their starboard, right, and pass oncoming vessels port to port. That is to keep them on their left side. Ships were restricted to a speed of 5 knots within the harbor. So because of war measures, they had to go slow and you had to go port to port. Howie's here. Howdy, Howie. Good to see you, sir. Yeah, it seems fishy. Seems fishy. Yeah, it sort of is. It was basically that kind of thing, but instead of some kind of plasma or electrical discharge, it was a giant explosion. Massive explosion. So the Emo was granted clearance to leave the basin by signals from the guard ship. And at 7:30 in the morning on the 6th, the ship entered the Narrows, well above the harbor speed limit, in an attempt to make up for the delay experienced in loading her coal. So she's speeding down the Narrows already. She wasn't supposed to. Emo met American tramp steamer SS Clara being piloted up the wrong side of the harbor. The pilots agreed to pass starboard to starboard. Soon afterwards, Emo was forced to head even further towards Dartmouth shore after passing the tugboat Stella Maris, which was traveling up the harbor to Bedford Basin near mid-channel. So you had all these other ships going the wrong way, going up the wrong side of the channel or going up the middle of the channel. And it keeps pushing the emo further and further so that they're basically going on the wrong side of the road, if you will. So already to me, that's like, the tramp steamer Clara, whoever was piloting or captaining that vessel, and whoever was piloting the tugboat, the Stella Maris or whatever, those two clowns are the ones that started the whole thing. If indeed we're to believe this goofy story. Meanwhile, the harbor patrol has not gone out there to say, hey, what are you numpties doing out here? It's wartime. Show some discipline. Canada happens to be a part of the British Commonwealth, so when merry old England picks a fight with somebody, we're in it by default. A-holes, quit screwing around down here. But no, everybody just kind of shrugged their shoulders. So it's going to be fine there, by. Oh, she's all good there for sure, but I guess. I don't know. Right now, I'm picturing all those goofy fishermen, the Jaws, when the lady whose son was eaten by the shark puts out the bounty on the shark, and fishermen are coming from all over the place into Amity so that they can go out and get this shark and get the reward. And there's like 20 guys to a boat, and it's half sinking, and they're a bunch of jackasses. That's what I'm picturing right now going on in Halifax Harbor on December the 6th, 1917. And if you're just joining me, by the way, welcome. Frankie here, New West Reset. And this is New West Reset Live, episode 30. We're talking about the great Halifax reset of 1917, the Halifax Explosion. So basically, to make a long story short, the one ship's going down the wrong side, and the one loaded with explosives, the Mont Blanc, is now headed straight to it's a collision course. And they're both blowing their whistles basically to say, hey, move over. And the other guys basically, they both basically decide to hold their ground. They both decide to play chicken, basically. No, I'm not moving, you move. And the other captain's like, no, monsieur, I am not moving to the other side. You are going to move. Howdy, Sage. Welcome. Oh, yeah, there was thousands and thousands and thousands of injuries. In fact, one of the direct results of one of the most common injuries, which were eye injuries from all the shattered flying glass, was the formation of the Canadian National Institute for the Blind, the CNIB. And also, the Red Cross apparently was a real instrumental in this whole thing, and it helped to really get the Red Cross's heels dug in up here in Canada in 82, which is, I don't think necessarily a good thing. But anyways, so basically each captain decides, no, it's, they have the right of way. One guy's thinking, I have the right of way because I'm loaded with all these dangerous explosives. And the other captain's thinking, well, I have the right of way because I've got all these emergency wartime relief supplies for everybody being affected in the war over in Europe, especially Belgium. So at the last minute, they cut engines and sort of do countermeasures, but accidentally the Emo's bow swings out further into mid harbor, and it bangs into the Mont Blanc. And this apparently spills the highly volatile, highly flammable fuel, which as a result of sparking somehow on the open water in Nova Scotia, by the way, probably one of the wettest, most humid places in Canada. Splashing around in the morning. This is in the winter, by the way, in the North Atlantic. Um, I'm sure it wasn't choppy, rough seas or anything, but it just strikes me as odd that they say that two metal hulls of ships could rub together and sparks from that could ignite the flammable liquid that was spilled on the deck. And then that resulted in the ship catching fire. But anyways, then it proceeds to burn for 20 minutes. Everybody abandons ship. The captain actually orders abandon ship. So everybody gets the hell out of there. Can't say I blame them. These boys are like, we know what's on this boat, man. There's all kinds of explosive shit on here. It's time to get out of Dodge. But the captain apparently didn't make any efforts to try to sort of steer the boat or anything back away from Halifax, because it's now drifting across the harbor, and was apparently now headed towards the Halifax side of the harbor. And after 20 minutes, kablooey. So here it is at 9:04 a.m. The out-of-control fire on board Mont Blanc set off her cargo of high explosive. The ship was completely blown apart, and a powerful blast wave radiated away from the explosion, initially at more than 1,000 meters or 3,300 feet per second. Temperatures of 5,000 degrees or 9,000 degrees Fahrenheit, and pressures of thousands of atmospheres accompanied the moment of detonation at the center of the explosion. White-hot shards of iron fell down upon Halifax and Dartmouth. Mont Blanc's forward 90-millimeter gun landed approximately 5.6 kilometers or 3.5 miles north of the explosion site near Albro Lake in Dartmouth, with its barrel bent, and half torn away by the force of the blast. Holy smokes. And the shank of Mont Blanc's anchor, weighing half a ton, landed 2 miles south at Armdale. Holy mackerel, man. This thing went kablooey. A cloud of white smoke rose to at least almost 12,000 feet. The blast was felt as far away as Cape Breton, which is 129 miles away, Prince Edward Island, 110 miles. An area of over 1.6 square kilometers or 400 acres was completely destroyed by the explosion, and the harbor floor was momentarily exposed by the volume of water that was displaced. So the explosion was so big that the sea bottom, or the bottom of the harbor, was exposed to dry air. Crazy, man. Crazy. A tsunami was formed by water surging in to fill the void. It rose as high as 60 feet above the high water mark on the Halifax side of the harbor. Emo was carried onto the shore at Dartmouth by the tsunami. The blast killed all but one on the whaler. Everyone else on the Panache, and 21 of the 26 men on Stella Maris. She ended up on the Dartmouth shore, severely damaged. The captain's son, first mate Walter Brennan, who had been thrown into the hold by the blast, survived, as did 4 others. All but one of Mont Blanc's crew members survived. It goes on to say over 1,600 people were killed instantly, 9,000 were injured, more than 300 of whom later died. Every building within a almost 1.5 mile or almost 2 mile radius, over 1,200 buildings in total, was destroyed or badly damaged. Hundreds of people who had been watching the fire from their homes were blinded when the blast wave shattered the windows in front of them. Overturned stoves and lamps, here you go, started fires throughout Halifax, particularly in the north end, where entire city blocks burned, trapping residents inside their houses. Firefighter Billy Wells, who was thrown away from the explosion, had his clothes torn from his body, described the devastation survivors faced. The sight was awful, with people hanging out of the windows dead, some with their heads missing, and some thrown onto overhead telegraph wire. Holy. He was the only member of the 8-man crew of the fire engine Patricia to survive. Large brick and stone factories near Pier 6, such as the Acadia Sugar Refinery, disappeared into unrecognizable heaps of rubble, killing most of their workers. The Nova Scotia cotton mill, located a mile from the blast, was destroyed by fire and the collapse of its concrete floors. The Royal Naval College of Canada building was badly damaged and several cadets and instructors maimed. Richmond Valley Railway yards and station were destroyed, killing 55 railway workers and destroying and damaging over 500 railway cars. The North Street Station, one of the busiest in Canada, was badly damaged. The death toll could have been worse had it not been for the self-sacrifice of an intercontinental railway dispatcher, Patrick Vinny Coleman. Vinny over here. He was a big hero, actually. He's on stamps and everything up here. But anyway, operating the rail yard about 700 plus feet from Pier 6 where the explosion occurred, he and his co-worker, William Lovett, learned of the dangerous cargo aboard the burning Mont Blanc from a sailor and began to flee. Coleman remembered that incoming passenger train from St. John, New Brunswick was due to arrive at the railroad yard within minutes. He returned to his post alone and continued to send out urgent telegraph messages to stop the train. Several variations of the message have been reported, among this from the Maritime Museum of the Atlantic. Hold up the train, ammunition ship afire in harbor, making for Pier 6 and will explode. Guess this will be my last message. Goodbye, boys. Yeah, I'm sure that's what he... Guess this will be my last message, see? Goodbye, boys. Yeah, like I'm sure that's how the message ended. But supposedly he did send out a message over telegraph, and it was received, and they did stop the train. So as you can imagine, there was huge rescue efforts, and they were thwarted by the fires, and then later on a blizzard that came in that day. So imagine you're sitting in your house. It's in the morning, right? I don't know, maybe you're having your eggs and some coffee and some back bacon or something there, eh, bud? You know, the wife's sitting next to you, she's having some tea and crumpets or something. And all of a sudden, kablooey, your house falls in on you, and you're half deaf, your ears are ringing, and you're all discombobulated because you don't know what's going on from this massive blast. Your house is on top of you, you're pinned in there. Now all of a sudden, all these fires magically start. I guess apparently all these stoves getting knocked over from houses being knocked over. Which I guess if you do some mental acrobatics and sort of fill in the blanks on the, official story for them, I guess it would make sense. Oh, it's breakfast time and everybody's got their kitchen stoves, either coal or wood stoves, all fired up. They've just made breakfast and everybody's off to school, off to work, yada, yada, the hustle and bustle of the day, even though it's 1917 wartime and all the men are gone off to war, or almost all the men, and everybody's rationing everything. Not to mention I don't know why there were so many coal stoves. They had electricity long by this time in Halifax, by the way. But anyways, supposing you got a wood stove. Well, your house collapses, your wood stove sets a blaze to your house. So now you're trapped and you're under the house and it's on fire. And then a blizzard comes in. So either way, whether you burn to death or freeze to death, you're pretty much, let's just say you're in bad shape there, okay, guy? That would not be fun. And again, I do not doubt that something happened, that there was a major blast that wiped out half the damn city and wiped out an entire village of indigenous people. And I do not doubt that the blast caused buildings to get completely obliterated, fires to start, although the firefighting narrative back then was stupid because they would dynamite buildings to create fire breaks. So a lot of times the buildings that they say were lost in fires were actually lost because these bozo fire chiefs would decree that they had to knock down 3 buildings in order to stop the fire from destroying 3 build. You know what? We got to destroy these 3 buildings before that fire destroys these 3 buildings. Either way, these buildings are getting razed to the ground. You see what I'm saying? Now, there's plenty of documentation for these injuries. There's lots of photos. I'm not going to share any photos of any of the injuries because it's little kids with half their eyes blown out, and it's not fun. It's not fun. But I did find some photos of the devastation of Halifax, a couple from Dartmouth, and also a couple from the Mi'kmaq village as well. Let me just see. Got one other. It's a page that I found. It's an article online. By the way, once again, all of the links will be down in the description below. All of the Wikipedia links, as well as the link to this article. So I'm going to just share this with you real quick as well. Scoodly doot doo, boom, there we go. And if you're just joining, welcome. Good to see all of you. Thank you very much once again for shooting in, joining me here. Frankie at New West Reset Live. And this is episode 30 tonight. We're looking at the what I'm calling the Great Halifax Reset of 1917. It was the Halifax Explosion that occurred. A couple of ocean liners that were involved with the war effort collided in Halifax Harbor and created up until the A-bombs of WW2 were dropped over in Japan there. Up to that point, these were the largest man-made explosions in human history. So, this article, where's this from? This is from the westernfrontassociation.com. So it's an article just on World War I. And this is the world's largest pre-atomic explosion. So I do remember, by the way, or carelessly toss cigar, or what was it Vince said earlier? At least it wasn't a cow kicking over a lantern. Yeah, here we go. Yeah. Cows got scared and kicked over lanterns left and right. Yeah. So anyways, in the article here, it says, not all fatalities that occurred in the First World War were a direct result of enemy action. There are many examples of incidents and accidents throughout the Great War that resulted in injury, loss of life, or damage to property. Perhaps the most significant of these accidents is surprisingly also one of the least well known, even to this day. I remember being taught about this in school, but it was really just sort of skipped over real quick. It was almost like, well, we have to talk about this because it was real bad. But not so bad that we were really going to dive into it. It's just part of a day's lesson plan in social studies class or whatever, and on Canadian history, and that was it. So it pretty much reiterates a lot of what we just looked at. It's provide relief to Belgium. This Norwegian transport ship, the Emo, which had been built in 1889, was chartered Committee to Relief Belgium, the intention of taking supplies from the U.S. to Belgium, sailing empty from Holland to New York. She arrived for inspection in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and she was detained there for a few days. Then on the 6th, the French tramp steamer SS Mont Blanc was headed towards Halifax. It was launched in 1899. She was not a particularly old vessel. Bought by the company, yada, yada, yada. Okay, so on. So explosives including TNT, picric acid, benzol, and gun cotton. This lethal cargo was outward bound from New York, being destined for France. So the collision. So, as mentioned, the ship keeps getting pushed closer and closer onto the wrong side of the harbor, and the captain's getting pissed. So at this point, the captain or the pilot of the Mont Blanc gave a single blast on the ship's whistle to indicate correctly that the Mont Blanc had the right of way, which was answered by two from the Emo, indicating she was not willing or not able to yield position. Angling towards the right or the near shore, Mont Blanc again whistled, hoping that the Emo would do likewise and also steer to its right. The Emo again whistled twice. Hearing the series of blasts on the whistles and realizing a collision was about to take place, many sailors gathered on nearby ships to watch. Wow, okay. Both ships had cut their engines, but the forward momentum of each ship could not be overcome. A last-minute maneuver by the Mont Blanc, when she steered to port or left away from the shore, seemed to have worked. The pilot was desperate to avoid grounding the ship, and this was likely to detonate the explosives. The ships started to pass each other. At this point, the Emo had made a fatal mistake and reversed her engines. This caused the Emo's bow to swing around. And as she carved into the side of the Mont Blanc by about 9 feet, the impact took place at 8:45 a.m. Compounding the mistakes already made, the Emo reversed, causing sparks to be created. This ignited vapors released from the damaged cargo, and a fire broke out within the Mont Blanc. Not surprisingly, the crew of the Mont Blanc rapidly headed for their lifeboats in order to escape the ship, which was likely to explode at any moment. Then it just describes a couple of the other ships that were in the harbor, some tugboats, and so on and so forth. Yada, yada, yada. And then a couple of photos. So supposedly this was taken 15, 20 seconds after the explosion. You can see a massive, huge explosion. And then it just, like the harbor is just screwed. It just screwed up all the ships in the harbor, everything. So yeah, it's like you're going the wrong way. No, I ain't. Yes, you is. No, I ain't, buddy. This is the way I'm supposed to go here now. Like it's, again, I don't doubt this happened, but the story just seems so stupid. First of all, if you're a sea ship captain, generally speaking, you're supposed to run a pretty tight ship. Now, of course, there's exceptions to every rule, and you hear about these drunken sea captains that run their ships aground or what have you. But I think that's the exception, and the exception proves the rule, and most especially during wartime, and most especially ships that are engaged in wartime missions. Disaster relief and, carrying explosives on behalf of military. These aren't just some salty old sea dogs that don't know what the hell they're doing. So the whole narrative of neither of them willing to give way in this highly scrutinized harbor that's also on, I guess, a heightened level of security and alert because it's wartime. They're raising and lowering the submarine nets at night and in the morning. Traffic of ships is highly restricted in and out of the Narrows into the harbor. They're worried about German U-boats. This is why they're doing all of this stuff. So that's why everything's got to be buttoned up tight and by the number. But by the way, some of these articles talk about the events leading up to this terrible disaster. It's like everybody that was pulling a barge in some tug, or anybody that was piloting a steam tramp or some kind of war vessel was just a babbling idiot and didn't know what they were doing, or was some kind of hard-ass sea dog that was unwilling, to give way, to give the right of way, to follow the rules, the wartime rules of the harbor. It's crazy to me. I think the whole thing was staged. I think what they wanted to do was they wanted to do some kind of false flag, and I think they screwed it up. And so they had to come up with some story really quick. And the story they came up with was, well, you got these two jackass ship captains that refused to give each other the right of way, and their ships collided, and it bloated up. But I think they actually just packed some old crappy French ship with a whole bunch of explosives and set it out into the middle of the harbor and detonated it, but something went wrong and it ended up killing a bunch of people. I think maybe it was supposed to have been detonated outside the Narrows, outside the harbor, maybe, or maybe at a different place in the harbor, or deeper into the harbor, maybe away from the more heavily populated areas, perhaps. I, I, I mean, I don't know, but I do not think accident my starboard stern. That's right. I just think that it was some kind of false flag that had to do with some shenanigans going on during WW1. And, we're no strangers to false flags happening during wartime or to kick off wartime. This isn't exactly some kind of crazy out of left field tinfoil hat conspiracy theory here. This has been proven, Gulf of Tonkin and so on and so forth. So, and I think it just went tits up. It went sideways on them. And that's why so many people were killed. Although false flags, I mean, they're not, the powers who should not be that orchestrate these events, they're not adverse to, bumping off a few hundred or a few thousand of us lowly, you know, bottom feeders or whatever they consider us, chattel. My smoke keeps going out of here, eh? So yeah, I do think that there was a blast. I think it was huge. I do think that it caused a big sonic boom, sound wave, blast wave, if you will, sonic boom. But that knocked over houses and smashed in windows, and glass went flying into people's faces. I don't doubt that they found parts of both of these ships flung across the harbor into different parts of Halifax and Dartmouth. I don't doubt any of that. There were people that were alive up until just recently that were little kids when this happened, on their way to school, 5, 6, 7 years old. They remember it and they were interviewed. So, but I think the circumstances and the story has been switched. And I think, it was this terrible event was seized upon to reset this part of Canada, this sort of Eastern Maritimes, in Halifax, Nova Scotia. This was their most recent reset, was 1917. Because half the damn city was destroyed. There's so many people that were killed or maimed or injured. So many different essential services and infrastructure, like essential infrastructures, were damaged or destroyed. The trains, the hospitals, the schools, everything. People were living in tents and temporary shelters. And again, an entire Indigenous First Nations town or village was completely wiped off the map. Over 1,000 people gone. So, of course, then when it comes time to rebuild, all these beautiful old world buildings are lost, never to be rebuilt back to their former glory. Then they just come in with, their square and rectangular cubes of glass and concrete and steel, and replace beautiful old world domed buildings with ugly, disgusting, brutalist modern buildings. So with that said, I've got some old film footage that was taken pretty much within a few minutes after some of the fires and everything started. So within about half an hour after the explosion itself. And you can see there's already a wind blowing and snow blowing around. And a couple points in this video, you can see that it's blizzard-like conditions. You can see the whipping wind blowing the snow, and there's small snow drifts starting to form. So that would just be brutal. Yeah, Acadian genocide. Yeah, basically. Yeah, it was done on purpose. But I think the events actually happened, but I don't think how they happened, as described, as we're told, are true. So it's just me. But I'm just a feller. What do I know? This guy up here in Calgary, eh? We've got our own crazy stuff going on. So if you're just joining me, welcome. Once again, Frankie here, New West Reset. And this is New West Reset Live, episode 30, the Great Halifax Reset, 1917. Coming up on 8 p.m. local time, Mountain Time here. So thanks for joining me for the kickoff to your weekend. Happy Friday to you. It's Friday. Yay! Maybe it's Saturday for a fella or a lady. I don't know. Either way, thanks for coming to see me. Appreciate it. So yeah, let's share this video here. I've just compiled it from, again, I believe this was the Nova Scotia archive channel here on YouTube, if I'm not mistaken. And I just put it to some music because I don't think there was any sound on it, if memory serves. But anyway, it's just a few minutes long, like 2.5 minutes. We'll come back and we'll have a look at some photos, and of course we'll give you a sneak peek. I stuttered. A sneak peek. I'll tell you why I stuttered, because the sneak peek at your midweek coming up for Wednesday is some footage I found of King George VI here in Canada, visiting us cowboys and Indians out here in the Canadian prairies. And didn't he have some kind of speech impediment? But anyways, that's not what we're going to see now. This is the Halifax disaster, about half an hour after the explosion, 1917. All right, so we're back. So as you can see from that footage there was a lot of destruction, but there was also a fairly quickly organized effort for people to, get food and shelter and warm blankets and stuff like that out to people. And it mostly came from uh, the other eastern provinces, New Brunswick most especially, and Quebec, but also from Maine. So thank you to my American neighbors. So yeah, that was some brutal stuff, because the blast knocks your house down on you. Then it catches on fire. So then your ass starts to cook like good old back bacon. And then a blizzard rolls in. So you get partially burned and then you freeze. So yeah, that's pleasant for everybody at that time. That must have just been so brutal. So brutal. Hello, hello. Just in time for the sneak peek. Internet person. Internet person. Yeah, well, you were just in time for the video. That wasn't even your midweek sneak peek. That was just some footage of the topic of discussion, the Halifax Explosion of 1917, the Great Halifax Reset. Yeah, that's Blind Willie Johnson. Dark was the night, cold was the ground. Thought it was appropriate. Michael Joshua Lewis is in the box. MJL, welcome, sir. Howdy. Oh, no, that's cool. It's all good. Good to see you. Glad you're here. Not a worry in the world. So we'll look at a few photos and then we'll have a sneak peek and then we'll chat for a little bit. And what have I got here for photos? I can't even remember how many I've got. I think I've got about a couple of dozen or so. Some of them are actually pretty old in terms of uh, not old, but old looking because of the quality. Some of them are pretty kind of beat up. But a lot of these are from the Maritime Museum, which I believe is also in Halifax. Some of them are from the Canadian government website, and some of them are from the Nova Scotia provincial website as well. So this first one here, it's taken just moments after the explosion. So this is the big giant plume of smoke coming up out of the background. And this is a fishing trawler, and I think this is a tug back here. The funny thing is that if the explosion was so great, like they say, that it caused a tsunami, that they say, that at one point at the ground zero, if you will, of the explosion, the bottom of the harbor was exposed, was completely dry, then I don't know how there's still fishing trawlers in the harbor. Wouldn't they have been washed up ashore like some of the other ships were? But see. So as you can see, a pretty huge coordinated effort. By the way, when you see at this time in Canada, when you see the old Union Jack, that was our flag basically until the 60s when we got our famous maple leaf flag, eh? Actually, there was a period before that where we sort of had a red flag with a beaver on it with like the Union Jack up in the corner or something. But so now we start seeing some of this devastation. And by the way, this is all snow on the ground. So you can see there's just completely burnt out buildings and big brick buildings that are, well, some of the brick buildings are still standing, but some of them have collapsed. And yeah, it just was an awful mess. These rail yards here were completely destroyed. So apparently the trains couldn't, until they replaced a lot of the track, the trains couldn't even come into Halifax loaded with, anybody to help or supplies or anything like that. And this is only Pier 8. The explosion happened close to Pier 6, but this is Pier 8. But even this, you could just see I mean, this is from a boat in the harbor that they say was loaded with explosive, and it just completely wiped out everything. These guys are ankle deep in snow. Just look at these. Everything is just effed up, man. Yeah, like Gojira. Exactly. Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. Why wouldn't the glass on the camera lenses shatter? I guess if they weren't directly in the blast wave. So if your camera was stored away in a box up on a shelf somewhere, but if it was just an open plane of glass facing the harbor, and somebody went up and looked out the window, hey, what the hell's going on out there? It's all the commotion out there. Then that's glass would shatter maybe, but that's a great question because I don't know exactly how that would work. So this is one of the schools that were completely. Oh no, sorry, the school was over here. Sorry, the school was over here. It's completely obliterated. This house is gone. And you can see the amount of snow already. Again, this is December in Atlantic Canada. This is downtown. They got their horse-drawn steam pumper here to pump the water so they can put out these fires. And then just everybody just completely displaced. It's just everything. Fires, complete destruction. Like I can understand roofs being blown off of houses or some wooden houses being completely blown away as if it was like a tornado, for example, or something like that, or a hurricane. But just every single like brick structures, stone structures, railway tracks were all flipped up and twisted up, apparently. Just for all this debris that's here. Look at this. There's nothing left. Yeah, it says it all right here. Great Halifax Explosion. Utter desolation and devastation so complete that this picture might have been taken on the battlefield of France. Yeah. These guys are painted in, though. See that? This photo's been fudged. I just noticed this. Look at this. Or at very least, they've been traced around with pen and ink to give them a little bit more contrast because it's such a dark, pixelated background. But either way, this photo's been manipulated. You let me know in the chat if you agree with me, but these two guys especially look very suspicious. Like this looks like it was just drawn in by a kid. Oh, there's his eye, his nose, and his mouth. There's definitely something screwy going on here. Am I right? Oh yeah, don't you worry about that. We'll get to some photos where you're gonna see you'll be seeing some top hats. And by the way, Halifax was a big center for our favorite punching bags here on the channel. The Stone Lane Brotherhood, the Freemasons, those jackasses. You had the Oddfellows here. You had the Freemasons. The Scottish Rite, New York Rite, and then you had the Orange Knights of the Orange Marmalade or whatever the hell that other goofy. It was associated with Ireland and something or other, but it was another secret society brotherhood, old boys club thing. This was part of the brewery, I think. Yeah, this was the old Halifax Brewery. Like, again, I can't help but keep saying over and over, just completely obliterated. And to add insult to injury, you got to, rescue efforts and start to rebuild with all the snow. And it's freezing cold, you know, minus 20 Celsius is the sugar refinery, or what used to be the sugar refinery. So this is the boat that hit the one that exploded. So this boat hit the SS Mont Blanc. And then the Mont Blanc caught fire. And then 20 minutes after it caught fire, after it had drifted from, because it was forced to be on this side of the harbor when it was supposed to be more on this side of the harbor. So after they collided and it caught fire, it was drifting over this way. But because everybody had abandoned ship, or I should say, I read a couple of sources that said the captain ordered abandoned ship. So, of course, the crewmen, with it being loaded with explosives, got the hell out of there. I don't blame them. But nobody made any effort to steer, like turn the rudder so that even if you just let it continue to drift, that it wouldn't continue to drift towards the shoreline. It would continue to, let's say, drift mid-harbor down further deeper into the harbor or something. Yeah, no, not the brewery, eh? Don't destroy the brewery, eh? Yeah, just gone. And this boat. So yeah, this one was washed up because of the tsunami, but a lot of the other ones that were floating in the harbor didn't seem to be affected. So that's odd. This was the makeshift hospital. So this was in the YMCA building. So apparently the train could only come to a certain point, and then people would unload the medical supplies and the food and blankets and all that and carry it in on foot through all the snow and during all this crappy weather. But look at this, man. I mean, it literally does look like an A bomb went off. It looks like the videos you see in Hiroshima or Nagasaki post the dropping of the supposed the big bombs, right? The only difference is there's snow everywhere, which to me makes it extra shitty. So now there you got some top hats here, making sure that here you're lifting up that lumber there, boy. Typical. You got like 10 people working and 5 times as many standing around watching. By the way, I don't mean to white feather anybody, but shouldn't a lot of these fellas here be off fighting the war? Like you all can't be essential worker. I mean, some of these are cops and soldiers, and sure, but what is this kid doing standing here? Slack-jawed yokel. So these are some of the docks in the harbor, just completely annihilated. You can still see a lot of smoke too from the ongoing fires and stuff. Look at this place, just completely discombobulated. So this is the SS Emo, IMO, Emo. And you could see, well, they apparently pasted that right on there so that the U-boats wouldn't sink them when they're crossing the Atlantic. Apparently, they think that one of the, apparently they think the bad guys were sneaky and underhanded enough to attack you from underwater with torpedoes by U-boats, but not so morally corrupt that they would say, "Oh, it's for Belgian relief. Okay, we won't sink them then." I mean, I know there's rules of engagement, but the bad guys supposedly ever follow the rules of engagement? Just another shot of just. I mean, this was part of the city of Halifax, man. I mean, and this is the worst part. It's some of these beautiful old buildings just completely dilapidated. Some of them flattened. All this beautiful brickwork and old architecture. Of course, when they rebuild a church, they're not going to rebuild it like this then. They're going to build some crappy looking church. So these were some of the temporary relief shelters set up by the Canadian Army. So you had people sleeping in tents during blizzards in Halifax, Nova Scotia in December. Could you imagine? Look at this. What's this in the background? Wow, get down from there, this thing's about to go, and this guy's up here. Hey, take my picture, buddy. Come on, eh? It's my last chance to get my picture taken up here, bud. Like, what the? Oh, wow. Oh, look at this. Oh, man. This just breaks the guy's heart. Look at this beautiful. And you know how we like to do it up here, dome with cupola with another dome. And just completely ratched. Oh, what a shame. It'd be one thing again, like I said, if the roof was just blown off, then you could just repair the roof. But when the part of the support structure and the beams and all of this is all effed up, forget it, I guess. Although if I own this building, I'd be like, come on, boys, let's get to work, But no, they tear them down. It's a shame. 1,200 buildings destroyed or damaged. So this is one of the many lineups for one of the many things: food, water, who knows. Of course, these shifty buggers got right in there right away. I'm not so sure about the Red Cross, Headley Man, BC. Howdy, welcome. Thanks for shooting in and joining me here. Once again, to all of you, thank you very much. And yeah, give the thing a like, a thumbs up, help a guy out there with the algorithm. I believe this is another shot of the emo, but from the other side. But you can just see up on the hill here, just all the devastation. Just everything was effed up, man. These were streets. And again, when they're trying to fight fires, oftentimes they will purposely demolish buildings to create fire breaks, right? So we got to destroy these buildings so these buildings don't get destroyed. Wait, what? Well, we can't let it burn to the ground, so we got to blow it up to the ground. Look at this. This is the train station. It completely destroyed the roof and partially collapsed the top here. And yeah, there were trains and people inside. It just completely, well, except for these big brick walls. Those are standing just fine. Your Antiquitech over here is still in fine form. Probably not working anymore, but not after this BS. But it's not just the little wooden frame two-story houses, right? The so-called Victorian and Edwardian style houses. It's like the big, massive buildings like this. A giant, big brick building. That's what they're saying, how powerful this blast was. Oh, there's some more top hats here. There he is. This is a nightmare. This is a total nightmare. Of course, they have to slip that fire narrative in, and they explain the fire is, oh, well, stoves got knocked over from the blast or from if your wall collapsed. But I don't know. I think they're just throwing it in there as if the explosion, the blast, the tsunami wasn't bad enough. Then they had to, it's like they're just throwing everything at the wall and whatever sticks. And on this one, apparently, like 4 things stuck: explosion, tsunami, fire, and terrible weather conditions, i.e., blizzard in this case. Gonna get all your, you have to get all your church ladies together so they can go and henpeck everybody into changing the laws. Because you can bet they changed a bunch of legislation after this. By the way, neither of those ship's captains were charged with anything, even after all the death and destruction. So entire neighborhoods, as it says here, snow-covered, devastated residential section of Halifax. So like entire neighborhoods just completely wiped out. And as mentioned, an entire Mi'kmaq Indigenous First Nations village destroyed, like completely gone. Like literally 1 minute it's there, the next minute gone. And I wish Old World Mi'kmaq was here tonight with us, joining us for the stream. As the name would suggest, he is Mi'kmaq, and I just wondered if he had any family members or anything that remember this terrible day. Okay, this makes more sense. Like when they said there was a huge tsunami that crashed all around in the harbor, and that ships were destroyed and washed ashore. This makes a little bit more sense. But in some of the earlier photos, I mean, they were just boats just floating in the harbor. And I doubt they were let into the harbor after this explosion. Probably for a couple of days, nobody was allowed in the harbor while they were investigating and all that stuff. And I know a lot of witnesses gave testimony after the fact that they thought it was a German attack. Look at this poor thing. What is this doohickey, by the way? Isn't there supposed to be a bell? This is World War I, 1917. So they're not taking bells out of churches and melting them down for the war effort yet, according to that crazy narrative. So what is... Shouldn't there be a bell? A guy's thinking there... Oh, it's a school. Well, even still, if it's not a church, it's a school. This is the Mi'kmaq school, by the way. This was the Indigenous Canadian First Nations Native Indian village that was destroyed. This was their school. Well, what the hell is this? School, church, either way. There's normally a bell, right? Clangety clang clang. But I don't know, what is that up there? A table? I don't even know what that is. It's weird. It was beautiful though, or it was beautiful. Gone now. Oh, Sage says he's part Mi'kmaq. There you go. So more than 1,000 killed in this city. Many thousands are injured and homeless. More than 1,000 dead and probably 5,000 injured, many of them fatally, is the result of the explosion yesterday on French steamship Mont Blanc, loaded with nitroglycerin and trinitrotoluol. See, now they're listing different explosives now in this article from the Halifax Herald, dated December 7th, 1917. This isn't some newspaper in Boston or New York or San Francisco or over in England where they might get it wrong. This is in the same city where this happened, and they're listing nitro and this trinitrotoluol, which I've never even heard of. I'm surprised that even guys got out of a guy's mouth properly. All of Halifax north and west of the depot is a mass of ruins, and many thousands of people are homeless. The Belgian relief steamer Emo, coming down from Bedford Basin, collided with the Mont Blanc, which immediately took fire and was headed after pier number 8 and exploded. Buildings over a great area collapsed, burying men, women, and children. Tugboats and smaller vessels were engulfed, and then a great wave washed up over Campbell Road. Fires broke out and became uncontrollable, stopping the work of rescue. Not a house in Halifax escaped some damage, and the region bound on by the east of the harbor, such as North Street and west by Windsor Street, is absolutely devastated. Oh, is that what that is? Okay. Yeah, okay. TNT. Yeah, okay. Trinitrotoluol is TNT. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, maybe that is a weird bell. Or yeah, maybe it's some kind of red mercury leftover tech. Maybe part of the tech was blown out of that little quote unquote bell tower, and that's all that was remaining. Sounds like they took some Titanic cues. Guess we know what they used on that one now. Yeah. Oh, yeah, this thing was just, man, oh, man. The wounded and homeless are in different institutions and homes over the city. The Halifax Herald is collecting information regarding the missing. And citizens who have victims of disaster at their homes are requested to telephone to the Herald office. Hundreds of the bodies undertaken to the ruins are unrecognizable, and morgues have been opened in different parts of the city. Citizens committees have been formed for rescue work. Bulletins will be issued throughout the day, giving information for the assistance of those who have lost relatives and friends. While practically every home in the city is damaged, those who are able to give any temporary accommodation are asked to notify some of the committees. Military and naval patrols are keeping order and superintending the rescue work. That sounds like a living hell, if you ask me. Well, here's from the Boston Globe the next day. Actually, well, 2 days after the explosion, but the day after the Herald article. This is from the 8th. But I wanted to grab this because it shows you this is the Narrows that they had coming in and out of from. This is the Bedford Basin. It comes out of the Atlantic Ocean. So this is sort of a holding area. A lot of the ships were anchored in here because the submarine nets were raised here in the Narrows. So they couldn't come into the harbor. So what a perfect opportunity for the Mont Blanc to be jam-packed with highly explosive material while it was anchored out here in Bedford Bay prior to entering the Narrows at 7:30 in the morning. And this is the area here that was destroyed. It's basically half the city. So in here was the rail yards and some of the ports. In here were all destroyed. Thank goodness the provincial exhibition grounds weren't damaged at all. What's this over here? Citadel. It's the first time I'm seeing this, by the way. Look at that. Huh. Another one to beep boop bop boop beep boop into the old memory banks and look into the Citadel in Halifax. Sure, that's long gone. But anyway, yeah, the ships would have to navigate through the Narrows. So that's why they're having to stick to one side while ships departing the harbor and going through the Narrows have to stick to the other side. So if you're coming in, I believe you're supposed to be on this side. But there were ships coming in mid-harbor and coming up the wrong way, which kept forcing the Mont Blanc to move further and further to the wrong side because there was bozos coming out the wrong way or whatever. Yeah, everything in a half-mile radius was dust. I remember that too. Old world hamster wheel cranes. Eric, right? It's Eric, if I'm not mistaken, right? But yeah, I remember that too. That because if there was explosions and fires in the electrical room or in the engine rooms. Apparently, there had been a fire raging below deck in the Titanic for quite a long time before she finally started to take on water. And it was a result of an explosion that actually damaged the hull that much. It wasn't the actual iceberg so much, but who knows with that Titanic? And really, it's kind of the same thing with this, right? Like, who really knows for sure? It's, over 100 years old now. So I highly doubt that there's anybody left that remembers this with any clear mind, right? This was 1917, and what are we at, 2023? That's a long time, man. I don't think there's anybody that's still alive that remembers this. 50 years ago is when it first started becoming kind of sort of re-entering the Canadian public conscience in a sense, because there was, the 50th anniversary of this whole thing in 1967, and that's when they dedicated like a big memorial and a plaque, and they had all the hobnobs and politicians come in to glad hand and cut ribbons and so on and so forth, right? But prior to that, there was just sort of small, sort of different sort of small observances. Like a church would have sort of like a remembrance ceremony, or some family would organize some kind of vigil or something like that. But it didn't really become a city thing and a provincial thing until sort of in that 50-year time period. Right. Yeah, because I know there's a couple of handle changes. So I wanted to just make sure that it was, yeah, you get what I'm saying. Yeah, so there's one of the things that was kind of bad about this too was there's a lot of kids, a lot of toddlers that were killed or badly injured, and there was tons of people that were blinded. Like so many people were blinded. Again, so much so that it kicked off the Canadian National Institute for the Blind. So this is the Toronto Daily Star on the 7th. So again, the day after the tragedy. But heavy snowstorm is raging in Halifax. So it's basically hampering a lot of the rescue efforts, and even just other cities being able to bring in, extra volunteers or extra supplies or nurses. Apparently, there was a lot of nurses and doctors that came up from Maine. So there was kind of a big thing with Maine and Halifax. I can't remember specifically where in Maine, but I remember watching a documentary about this when I was just doing a little bit of research on it, just kind of getting a good foothold on the sort of the mainstream story of this thing. So these are a few photos of the Mi'kmaq themselves. These are a nation of indigenous peoples that primarily eastern Canada and the northeast of the United States, and they had a quite a substantial presence in not only in the province of Nova Scotia but in Halifax again, and in the Bay, that Halifax Bay area. By the way, I'd like you to take note of the fact that even though this is just into the 20th century, um, keep in mind of sort of keep in mind in your mind's eye what you would normally picture when you think American Indian, North American Indian, and then look at these noble people. They don't exactly look like they fit in with what we're necessarily told all the time, or the wild Indians. You know what I'm saying? So these are some of the residences, the traditional residences. They also lived in more standard homes, and then they had that church as well as a community hall. Um, and they also had a pretty sophisticated system set up for their fishing along the shoreline as well. But I wasn't able to find any pictures of that. Ignore this clown. He's obviously from the church, but everybody else in this photo are Mi'kmaq, including Mr. Top Hat himself. So he must be the big hobnob over there. Beautiful outfits. Really intricate with the bead work and all of this stitch work along here. But they definitely don't look like American Indians, right? And again, you'll have to pardon my terminology. I'm just, what's sort of generally accepted to be thought of as, sort of feathered headdress, tomahawk quiver of arrows and bows, buffalo skin hide clothing, maybe, depending on what nation, whether you were Cherokee, excuse me, or Sioux or what have you. But I mean, this is very beautiful, very regal looking, very elaborate. It's far beyond, eagle feathers and buckskin tunics. Yeah, it's exactly it. The tent, it just happens to be a wigwam or teepee style, what we would call tent. But you can see in the background here too. That's their community center, their community hall in their village. And again, I think the older generations lived in the more traditional, and you can see it's not like crappy inside. Like, look, they've got furniture in there and dishware, and you know, this is a nice spread here of whatever auntie is cooking up here or whatever's going on. But I think the older generations lived maybe in these teepee style residences, and then maybe some of the younger generations would build more traditional wood frame homes, or what we consider our traditional wood frame homes. But yeah, it's like, having a cabin down by the lake or what have you. So a lot of them were fishermen, farmers, and ranchers. Sheep and cattle, mostly sheep. Sheep, I think, was more common than cattle. Very interesting headdress. And again, just very lovely stitch work and just all the bead work and everything. But with the sash and the whole, I mean, they just, not a feather in sight. So you can't always believe what you see in the John Wayne movies. Okay. Oh, well, okay. Here, the kid's got a bow and arrow. Okay, well, you got me on that one. But again, there's some of them lived in the teepees, some of them lived in houses. There's a house here. There's another house over here. This is a little bit of their fishing, but this is sort of all I could get. But they had these very elaborate all along the shorelines, all in their village. And basically, it worked in conjunction with the tides and the sort of the currents along the shoreline in the harbor. And they were able to basically just let the water do their fishing for them. Just absolute genius. I think that is it for photos. Yes, indeed. That was the last photo on that one. So yeah, that entire village, by the way, all those photos were taken pre 1917 for the Mi'kmaq village. That whole village just completely gone. About 1,000 people completely wiped out. I mean, that's why I was wondering if Old World Mi'kmaq would be in the chat tonight, because that's got to be now entered into. I mean, it's been just over 100 years, been fairly well over 100 years. So one would think that is now entered part of the tribal cultural memory or lexicon. I guess kind of like a few streams back when I talked about the year 1700, and there was a couple of indigenous villages that were wiped out as a result of the under ocean earthquake off the west coast of British Columbia. And then almost basically they figured could have been simultaneously, or one triggered the other, a volcanic eruption in the Rocky Mountains in British Columbia. And it caused fires and blocked out the sun and tsunamis. And there was a couple of indigenous villages that were wiped out. And now it's become part of the West Coast First Nations. It's become part of their oral traditions to tell stories of this. And that happened in the year 1700. So that was, 300 plus years ago. So I think, what are we coming up here? An hour and 45. So I think what a guy's going to do here is give you a sneak peek at your midweek coming up for Wednesday. And this one's about 5.5, 6 minutes, something like that. I'll take a quick little break doing that. And when I come back, I'll have a quick little chat with all of you there in the box and see if there's anything else that I kind of missed with this whole Halifax thing. And then we'll get ready to wind it down. So yeah, this is a sneak peek at your midweek coming up for Wednesday. And as a reminder, every Sunday I upload a boots on the ground video, checking out some cool old houses or potentially old world buildings, pre-reset buildings here in Calgary. Every Wednesday is your midweek video, and that's usually a vintage footage video, some old video footage I find from the late 1890s, early 1900s. I'll kind of edit the thing a bit, add some filters, and do some cool stuff with the music, add some music to it. And then as is the case right now, every Friday, live. New West Reset live every Friday. Between 5 and 7-ish, kind of starting time. And that's mountain time. I'll kind of go up anywhere between 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. So, yeah, this one is going to be your midweek for Wednesday, vintage footage. This is when King George the Sixth visited Canada with Queen Elizabeth I, the Queen Mother. Mommy. But I got some footage of them visiting all those cowboys and Indians out here in the Wild West out in Canada. So this is footage of them in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and in Saskatchewan, and then here in Alberta. So I thought it was kind of neat, especially with all the pomp and circumstance. Make special note, by the way, again, of all the old world buildings in the background. And also when they get to the part with the quote unquote Indians, check out how tall some of these indigenous First Nations guys are. Holy smokes, they look like 7-footers. Anyway, check this out. And again, it's about 5 minutes, and I'll be right back. All right, we are back. What did you? I was just gonna say, what did you think of that? But I can I can definitely see what you thought of that. That's pretty good. You're making a guy cough. Making a guy have a fit over here. Oh, jeez. So yeah, before I depart, I would be remiss in quickly sharing with you as well the quick little overview here of the pronounced Micmac. Well, that's how everybody says it, Micmac, but it's Mi'kmaq. It's Mi'kmaq. But anyway, it's fine. I'm not here to give you languages on lessons on languages. I found it interesting here that their Grand Council flag encompasses the Christian symbol, the half moon or the crescent moon of Islam, and one could argue a stars and maybe the Star of David, although it's not quite, but found that to be interesting. But the Mi'kmaq are First Nations people of the northeastern woodlands, indigenous to the areas of Canada's Atlantic provinces, primarily Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Newfoundland, and the Gaspé Peninsula of Quebec, as well as Native Americans in the northeastern region, of Maine. The traditional national territory of the Mi'kmaq is named Mi'kma'ki. So there's 67,000 Mi'kmaq in the region as of 2023. Well, if you're getting wiped out 1,000 at a time by crazy explosions and tsunamis in these villages, then yeah, guess that's why there's only a few thousand. My goodness. So yeah, I'll put the link for this in the description as well. Gives you sort of a history of their language, and they actually were one of the few indigenous peoples that actually had a form of written language, although it was more of like a hieroglyphic, sorry. But yeah, it's very interesting. So yeah, that'll be in the description as well. Yeah, no, there's consonants. It's just I think that it sort of trails off at the end. So that last consonant at the end of the word is a lot softer, not quite silent, but almost. But I'm not indigenous. I'm not Mi'kmaq, so I don't know. I mean, I'm from Eastern Canada. I'm originally from Quebec, so I'm familiar with that nation or that tribe. They're actually part of a larger nation, I believe. Iroquois, I want to say maybe Iroquois. Oh, siren. There's my ride. They're coming to get me. But yeah. So how's everybody doing in the chat? I hope everybody's doing well, enjoying the live stream. Once again, this is Frankie, New West Reset. Sorry, I just muted there for a second while the ambulance was going by. So yeah, New West Reset Live, episode 30 here, talking about the great Halifax reset of 1917, the terrible Halifax explosion, where the French vessel, the Mont Blanc, loaded with TNT and all kinds of other explosive materials, was struck by another ship. And apparently, when two ships rub together in the water, it creates lots of sparks. And then all of these sparks ignited some of the explosive material that was contained within the ship and not properly secured on deck, I guess. Causing it to catch fire, and then 20 minutes later exploding in what they say was, up until that point, or actually, sorry, up until the two A-bombs dropped on Japan in WW2, was the largest man-made explosion in human history. So, and probably a lot of you out there hadn't heard of it. I had sort of barely heard of it. Fragmented recollections of, I'm thinking, what was junior high school, grade 7 or grade 8, social studies, Canadian history, where they sort of glossed over it quickly as part of the day's lesson about, I don't know, maritime life at the turn of the last century or something. I don't even know. But yeah. Well, yeah, that whole crazy Oak Island thing out there in Nova Scotia too. Yeah, that's a whole big thing too. I haven't really, to be honest, I never really looked into it. I never watched that show, the Oak Island, the what is it called, the Mystery of Oak Island or whatever it's called. I know there's a lot of people that are interested. I know Biggs talks about it. But I've never seen it. I haven't had cable in, geez, almost 20 years. So I think I've talked about it before. My brother's really good at getting on the interwebs and beep boop bop boop beep boop on the keyboard, and he can find these. He basically can sail the high seas of video piracy, and he finds shows that we like. There's about 5 shows that we both like. So he just downloads them on a little memory stick, pops it into the Xbox, and we watch it on the big screen. And then when we're done, he erases it. And, you know, often movies we'll watch, they're still in the theater and we'll watch them. And they're not the cam movies where the guy's he's filming the screen with his phone and he's trying to hide it. Yeah, you can hear people eating popcorn and see people getting up to take a crap or whatever. These are like DVD quality, sometimes Blu-ray quality. I don't know where he finds it. I don't know how he does it. I'm not a computer guy. A couple of days ago, we watched that Gran Turismo movie where it's video game kids that play the Gran Turismo video game compete for a chance to become a real driver. Apparently it's based on a true story. I don't know. It sounds crazy, but the movie was pretty good. It was pretty good. So yeah, that wasn't too shabby. But yeah, as far as the Oak Island thing, I have no idea. Oh, there's supposed to be some hole, and when there was some gold found down there, so then there was supposed to be a legend of some treasure down there, or the Holy Grail, or something. So people were digging down to excavate, and apparently it was booby trapped, and they didn't know, and they triggered all the booby traps. But this is just all second and third hand information because I'm not too sure. Yeah, their flag did look very, yeah, it had a lot of that. And to be honest, I didn't even really look too closely at a lot of the symbology of their language. but I bet you that there's some interesting symbolism within their hieroglyphics too, and their petroglyphs. One would guess. I haven't really looked into it, but that would be interesting as sort of a little study as well. Oh, Eric says his dinner is here. Hope everyone has a rocking evening. Love you all. Thank you very much, Eric. Old world hamster wheel cranes. Thanks for joining us. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you shooting in. It's always great to have you in the chat. Always good to have you in the box. Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I see. I'm not sure. It sounds like a red herring or wild goose chase to me, especially if it's taken this long with modern day equipment. But then again, there's that whole thing we talk about all the time, right? With modern equipment, stuff that we're told, took them 2 years to build in the 1850s, for example, or the 1880s. They find challenging to build stuff on equal a scale in terms of size, but not nearly as ornate and visually appealing in the same time frame with modern equipment, a larger workforce and all of that. So I don't know. By the way, if you are in the Halifax/Nova Scotia region, I hope everything's going well for you out there and that you're staying safe and healthy with the terrible floods that have been going on. And once again, a shout out to everybody up in the Northwest Territories here in Canada with the terrible wildfires. Of course. Oh, the fires here in Alberta and BC. And then it was, of course, over in Hawaii. Not that long ago, we had Australia, California, Great Britain, over in England, over somewhere in England. I can't remember where it was. Had some terrible wildfires. Jeez. And then the big high and mighty swoop in and buy up the land for pennies on the dollar. And they sit on it for 10 years, and then the land comes back and it's, lush and green again. And everybody's been displaced and kicked off the land or threatened or whatever, chased off or hornswoggled or hooskowed out of it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, Terry says there is no gold on Oak Island. Oak Island. It's all in the Grand Canyon. Well, apparently they did find a bunch of artifacts there back in the day, right? You could find old articles from what was it, the 1870s, 1880s, Egyptian stuff. Of course, really, how educated was the average canyon spelunker on Egyptology back in the 1880s? Right? I don't know if I found some weird tablet in some, I don't know, along some shoreline or in some weird cave or something here, and I looked at it, I wouldn't be able to tell if it was Sanskrit or who knows. I wouldn't be able to tell what language it was in. Who knows? Internet person says I went on Oak Island in 1889. I thought they'd found something by now. Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, the people that found it were treasure hunters. Okay, well, yeah, but is a treasure hunter an expert on Egyptian hieroglyphics? I don't know if something is Egyptian or not. I don't know. I'm just saying, right? Like the whole thing has been because it was again, no one's allowed down there now. You can't even fly drones over there. There's black helicopters flying around, and it's strictly controlled. Like, God help you if you're on a raft going down whatever that. What's the river that goes through there? I don't even remember. But anyways, and you accidentally go too far, and you accidentally end up in that. Like, what are they gonna do? Shoot you? Like, who knows, right? They could Area 51 your ass and shoot you. But that's just, I don't know. One hand washes the other, right? Because you got the National Park Service, and then you have the Smithsonian. And they're like with the giants, right? Like what happens with all of the giant remains that were found in the United States and up here in Canada too, in Ontario, Quebec. Um, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag too much, but I was thinking for an upcoming live stream, talk about the mound builders of Canada, because not a lot of people know that there were ancient indigenous peoples here up in Canadadia, eh? And don't for sure they're bought. They were building the mounds too, eh? It's not just the ones down along the Mississippi and over in the Ohio Valley and stuff there, but it's up here too, up in the north there, eh? So yeah. But yeah, the Smithsonian and the National Park Service. There's all these funny things, even like wildlife preserves, bird sanctuaries, you know, like you can only stay on this trail and the park closes at 10 p.m. or whatever, right? And you can't just go in there and just hike around and have a look around. But perhaps they can't necessarily completely block access. So what they try to do is just restrict access, and then they can easily just say, "Oh, there's fire risk in the area, so we had to close the park." And they come up with all these cockamamie excuses. But yeah, giants, the mounds, they tore down and excavated so many of these mounds, and who knows what was in there because no one said peep about it. And then they start, they label all the everything that has to do with these people that had found giants as a bunch of quacks and weirdos. And but the funny thing is, giant remains are found everywhere, not just in the mounds in the Mississippi Valley or mountains up here in Canada. Those giant remains are found in France and England and Ireland, Scotland, in the Middle East, like in the deserts of Arabia kind of thing, and up in like northern Iran, like what was formerly Persia and Mesopotamia. It's like in Asia, China. Like, come on, man, up in Russia, and give me a break, dude. If it was just a case of, oh, it's just a really tall Indian guy, okay. If it was a one or two off, sure. But it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and thousands all over the world. Come on, man. Well, yeah, I was definitely gonna look into that. I'm not gonna do it here tonight. We're just past the 2 hour mark here, but probably gonna get ready to shut her down pretty quick here. But that said, I would definitely look into that Citadel area in Halifax for sure. Absolutely. But yeah, gonna look into the giant thing here coming up probably in the next few weeks or so. Just gonna kind of dig a little further into it, get some more information on some of the mounds and the giants that were found up here in Canada there, bud. I don't know. Were they buried with maple syrup, maybe? It could be. Could be they put some maple syrup in the burial mounds with them giants up here in Canada. Maybe some back bacon or some good beer. Maybe a hockey puck. I don't know. So what else is coming up on the channel? Something big coming up. My buddy Vince that was in the chat earlier in the live stream. He and I are, there he is. He and I are going to be going to Heritage Park tomorrow, which will be, for us, will be Saturday, September the 9th. That's that sort of living museum park, I guess. It's set up like a 1900s town. Like they got stuff there from the 1850s up to like 1920s. And they set it up like a little town. There's an old hotel and a saloon, and there's a railway museum there. There's an old Victorian era amusement park in there with old rides, and you could tour around and stuff. So we're going to be checking that out. And it's basically what they do is in Calgary and some of the surrounding small prairie towns, if they were going to knock down some old church, instead they'd move it to Heritage Park and they'd set it up there as part of their little town. I guess it's kind of like what they have in the U.S. there, where you can walk around. It's like a pioneer village. What's that called? Gettysburg? Is that right? Where you can, and there's people that are like actors and they pretend that they're like spinning wool on a spinning wheel, and then there's a blacksmith. It's kind of the same thing at Heritage Park. So we're going to be doing that tomorrow. So I'm going to film a bunch of footage for that and get that edited together and put that up on the channel. I've got a couple of little mini mud flood walkabout tours that I've done recently. So those are going to be coming up. Keep an eye out for those. What else is going on here? Well, I got the super chat going. I know now's a hell of a time to mention it. See, I told you a guy's terrible at self-promotion. Got a super chats going now for the live streams. So that's kind of neat. So anything that a guy can scoop up from the super chat donations on the live streams will go to the channel for, like, a better gimbal, so don't get the shaky cam when it's minus 20 and I'm out there doing boots on the ground footage. Maybe a guy will get himself a new pair of gloves or something too there, bud. But yeah, anything from that will go towards better equipment for the channel, and stuff like bus tickets to go up to Edmonton or something like that, or what have you. And yeah, of course, as mentioned earlier, every Sunday, boots on the ground video. Every Wednesday, you get your vintage footage. Then every Friday, live with me here, New West Reset Live. What else is coming up this month for the month of September? Going to be having a Knucklehead show, myself, and Old World Exploration. We're going to be looking at Brandon, Manitoba there, bud. So that'll be coming up sort of mid toward the end of the month of September. That'll be our Knucklehead show. I think that's episode 6 already for our show. So keep your ocular sphericals glued in here for notifications on when that's coming up. What else? What's Terry saying? Ooh, Heritage Park. Yeah, Heritage Park's very cool. They got an old steam paddle boat ship, kind of like, the river boats that used to go up and down the Mississippi, the paddle boats. They got one of those. The old steam train. They got the old electric streetcar that used to be here in Calgary. They got one of those. Excuse me. Ye old candy shop and all of that. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of footage. That might be at least an hour. So yeah, that'll be a lot of fun, and looking forward to it. It's supposed to be a nice day tomorrow. Not too hot, but it's supposed to be clear blue skies. So that'll be really nice. Yeah, Brandon's very interesting. Brandon will be very, very interesting. So yeah, what else is happening? I think that's really about it. Still messing around with the whole Frankie Fingers thing. I was just working on another one. Again, I'm just kind of playing around with this whole Frankie Fingers nickname that I've was given. So I've been kind of having fun with it. So I got a kind of a new one here for you with the whole Frankie Fingers thing. So check this one out.
So now you know what I'm talking about with the whole New West Reset thing.
No.
What?
No.
What I said about Frankie Fingers. That Frankie Fingers and New West Reset are the same.
Wait, what?
Oh yeah, she don't stand no cheating. She don't stand none of that.
Yeah, so there you go. Have fun. We got to have a little fun around here, you know? So what you're saying is Frankie Fingers is New West Reset?
Frankie Fingers is New West Reset. I don't understand. Okay, I've been trying to tell you. Trying to tell you, Frankie Fingers is New West Reset. New West Reset is Frankie Fingers.
So it's the same guy. Same guy.
Yes, it's the same guy, Mutt. What do you think? I've been trying to tell you. Frankie Fingers, New West Reset. Frankie Fingers, New West Reset. Okay?
All right, I got it. Jeez. All right, one more, and then we'll quit screwing around. Or one more, just for shits and giggles.
So, Tommy, where have you been, huh? I've been watching New West Reset. Huh? Well, you know, it's New West Reset. It's this thing on YouTube. He goes around, he does his boots on the ground thing. I'll tell you.
Say you care.
Yeah, so there you go. Yeah, thanks. I have fun goofing around with that stuff. You know, I'm not the best on the people popping machine here with the editing and stuff, but I don't mind messing around with it. That's for sure. Hey, HD, how you doing? Welcome. HD in the box. So yeah, I have fun looking for things that I can put together and chop up, and then, you know, do my Joe Pesci voice over here, huh? You dumb, disgusting, fat mutt, you, huh? Anyway, it's fun. Maybe I should try to do the bring the Robert De Niro voice into the mix on some of these. What do you think of that? Let me let me know in the chat, or let me know in the comments. If you want me to start messing around with the Robert De Niro voice, so I can get the Joe Pesci thing going over here, and get the Robert De Niro. You talking to me? What'd I tell you? What'd I tell you? Get those two clowns goofing around together. Anyway. Oh, thank you, Terry. Yeah, and that's the thing, right? It's just asking questions, just thinking, just looking at the official story, the official narrative, and going, okay, obviously something big happened. We have testimony from witnesses. We have testimony from people that were there. There's lots of photographs. Apparently, photographs of just moments after the explosion, where you could see the giant smoke plume, and then not only photographs but video footage of the aftermath. So obviously something happened, but the official story is so cockamamie, and it's got so many holes in it. It's got more holes than Swiss cheese, y'all. Anyway, that it just, you know, there's just so many things that just don't make sense. You know, if you're on a mission, a sea voyage, and you're in an ocean vessel, and your mission is military related, I mean, you're going to be by the books, by the numbers. You're not going to be screwing around with, hey, this is my side of the harbor, that's your side, or this, that, and toot the horn. Come on. Again, it says in all these articles, they were raising and lowering the anti-submarine nets because they're afraid of German U-boats coming into the harbor at night down the Narrows. The stuff had to be like clockwork. It had to be organized. It was regulation. It was military regulation. As Canada being part of the Commonwealth, forces, the Canadian Army and the Canadian Navy. I don't think we even had an Air Force at this point, but anyway, you get what I'm after. I mean, there's just a lot of greasy fingers and butterfingers, goofy stuff going on with these ship's captains, and not just these two. There's like 4 or 5 of them. That's the story is they're just a bunch of screw ups. And whoops, oh, accidentally the largest explosion in human history until they dropped the A-bombs. What? In one of the busiest ports and one of the fastest growing cities in Canada during wartime. It's not like, dropping your wedding ring down the drain while you're washing your hands. I mean, whoopsie. Oh, now I got to shut off the water, get the monkey wrench, take off the trap, fish around in there, get the ring out, clean it off, reinstall the trap on the pipe, turn the water back on. You don't really need to turn the water off, but if it's accidentally on when you don't have that, the trap in place, yeah, it just makes a mess, right? But it's not like, oh, I can't find my car keys. So yeah, it was a thinker for sure. I definitely think there was something hokey going on, especially just with the official story. I think that they were probably planning some false flag, and it went off not quite as they planned. Or maybe it's exactly how they planned it. Maybe they don't give a crap that 2,000 people were killed and an indigenous village was completely wiped off the face of the earth. And that, dozens of kids went blind, hundreds of people went blind. I mean, look at the other false flags, how many injuries or results or injuries that occurred as results of whatever the false flag kicked off, right? A certain day in September comes to mind, not so long ago, 20 odd years ago or so, right? So, definitely wouldn't be the first time. It certainly wouldn't be the last that some kind of false flag or false narrative was going on with this terrible, terrible explosion in Halifax. So all we can do is just kind of question, and then that's kind of the whole thing here, is that we just got to kind of look at this from as many angles as we can. That's why I like doing these live streams and getting a bunch of you in the box, because, two heads are better than one kind of thing, and we can all sort of, have a look at this from different perspectives, different experience, different, education backgrounds, different skill sets. And one day we're going to punch enough holes in this whole thing that, all will be revealed. I don't know if it'll be in my time, but hopefully that would be fantastic. So with that, I think that is going to do it. I'm getting ready to wind this thing down here. Yeah, the what was his name? Astor, and a couple of people that were opposed to the Federal Reserve and the central bank system, right? All of a sudden went for a swim in the Big Dip when they sunk the giant ship. So I think that is going to seal the deal here for tonight for Frankie, New West Reset and New West Reset Live, episode 30, the Great Halifax Reset of 1917. And again, as mentioned throughout the live stream, links for everything are in the description below. So thank you, everybody in the box, for shooting in and joining me here live. For those of you that are tuning in after the fact, howdy, hi there. Thank you and welcome. Appreciate all of your support as well. Don't forget to like and do all the other YouTube stuffs, and let me know what you think down below. Just kind of beep, boop, bop it on the old keyboard there for me. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. You're a new one, Dalren Michael. I probably butchered that, Dalren Michael. If I did, I apologize. But good to see you. Welcome. So there you go, and there you have it. So, yeah, until the next one, thank you very much, everybody. Take care out there, and have yourselves a good one. All right? Cheers.